Happy Tuesday and welcome into Dolphins Today by Chat Sports. I am Nick Roloff. Hope everybody is having a good start to your week. We have a lot to discuss on today's show. Big time developing news, that is. Asante Samuel Jr., my top Dolphins free agent target, got contacted. Chris Grier apparently reached out to him and his camp. That is according to Barry Jackson of the Miami Herald. Also still in contact with free agent corner Rasul Douglas. We'll talk about the latest on those two, the Miami Dolphins. We'll also take a look at a little bit of a recap of the offseason because Bleacher Report and Pro Football Focus did not give kind grades to the offseason for Miami. I disagree. We'll also talk about a young star on this Dolphins roster and wrap up today's show with a Q&A. Appreciate everybody coming in and hanging out with us. As always, we like to start our show by giving some shout-outs, so let me know where you're all watching from, and we'll give some shout-outs. I got some legends in the chat like Wasim Khan. What's up, Wasim? Good to see you. My guy Ruski is here. Tyson Bryant. Big Dog, John is from Hawaii. New is saying, what's up? What's up, Building Fins Fap? Good to see you. Big Dog says, sign Asante. Ruski is in Fresno County. Joey's from Miami. Patrick's in New Jersey. And you is watching from Queens, New York, baby. Love it, love it, love it. I'm from Rochester, New York, if you were not aware. Robert's in Stockton, California. Monroeville, Alabama. What's up, Clayton? Denison Medical Lake, Washington. Building Fins Up is in Connecticut. Oh man, we're nationwide here. How about worldwide? Because shit, I don't know how to say your name, man. Niels? I don't want to even try to pronounce the last name, but NK. Good point. Good point. Germany. Shout out to you. That's legendary. My guy Jonathan Soto is from Melbourne, Florida. JJ in Myrtle Beach. Clayton in Wisconsin. A lot of people are probably tuning in wondering about Asante Samuel Jr. We are going to talk a lot about him on today's show because he has been reached out to by Chris Grier, this Miami Dolphins front office. One of the top free agent corners still available. The one that I want the most. 25 years old, former second-round pick out of Florida State, but has dealt with a lot of injuries in his career. Just had neck surgery in April, likely signing in July. This is not do you want. This is a prediction. Will the Dolphins sign Asante Samuel Jr.? I am going to type my Y's for optimism and try to speak it into existence. I do think they are going to sign multiple corners. Rasul Douglas, obviously the most, obvious option because he's the one linked to Miami the most, but I do think Asante Samuel Jr. will be signed. Big Dog going yes. Mary saying Linkmo. I don't know if that's a place. Terrence is in Midtown Miami. Ty Man, what's up, my guy? Saying yes. JJ saying yes. New saying yes. Big Dog, yes. Can they afford? Yeah, they can afford both. Yeah, they have about $24 million in cap space when they inevitably trade Jalen Ramsey after June 1st. And I believe allotting that money to both of the corners is the best way to go about the rest of the offseason. I will say Miami will want to retain about $10 million in cap space going into the season, just in case they have to make trades or signings during the year. So I believe that they will leave themselves about 10, but after they trade Ramsey, because that is going to happen, unfortunately, after June 1st, they will likely sign 2, have $20+ million in cap space, and make it happen. Building things up says, wait, why did I think Asante Samuel was 30? I don't know. Rasul Douglas is 30 years old. He is an option for Miami. Who is your top Dolphins free agent target? Is it Asante Samuel Jr.? Is it Rasul Douglas? Is it an offensive lineman? Is it a safety? Those are the 3 positions that I see Miami addressing if they do go out and sign someone in free agency. So let me know what player is your top guy. I've been saying Asante Samuel Jr. for a very long time, but I wouldn't be that upset if you guys named like a Brandon Scherf if you wanted to add another veteran to the offensive line, a Julian Blackmon at safety, Justin Simmons at safety. So it wouldn't bother me if y'all went outside the box, outside Asante Samuel Jr. That's just mine, though. Big Dog saying Mike Hilton. Joey D is saying Julian Blackmon as well as Asante Samuel. If you guys can recall, and if you've been subscribed for a while, in my perfect free agency plan, like 1 week before free agency in early March, on that plan was Julian Blackmon. I thought he was going to fetch a 3-year, $21, $24 million deal. I guess I read that completely wrong, and maybe I was just higher on Julian Blackmon than I guess the NFL was, because he remains a free agent, likely will not get a multi-year contract, and if he does, it's certainly not going to be 3 years in all likelihood. But I think Blackmon's a solid cover safety, versatile, could play in the nickel, would have been a big fan of adding him to this roster, but they went with Iafatu Melifanu and Ashton Davis. Don't think they're going to add another safety, especially after they drafted Dante Trader Jr., have Patrick Morris in year 2. I think if they sign someone, it's going to be likely offensive line insurance, and cornerbacks I wouldn't be shocked if they went back to the well with Isaiah Wynn, someone who could be a Swiss Army knife on that offensive line as a depth piece. So we'll see. Let's see. Patrick says, what's up with Surtain? You talking about Patrick Surtain? Yeah, that's not going to happen. They ain't training him over there in Denver town, man. I ain't training him. Gav says Asante Samuel Jr. You think Ramsey trade value could increase if Finn's keep him when he plays really good? I don't think he's going to be kept, though. Like that's the thing here. Don't think that is even on the table at this point. Sounds like the relationship might be fractured between him and the coaching staff, if you will. I wish I could keep him because the Dolphins need a corner. Sign Asante Samuel Jr. to pair up with Ramsey and the rest of this crew, and that's a competent room. No, Xavier Howard. Please no, Xavier Howard. All right, we got to get the likes up, folks. We only have 17 likes, and we got to get to 35 to start today's show. We are 19 likes away from that goal. Can we get that number to 35? We're trying to get there. The bosses want a 50% like rate at all times on today's show. Well, if we want to get there, we need 11 more. Help me out. Hit that thumbs up icon, because when you hit that thumbs up icon, we get the 35 likes. We will actually start today's show breaking down the latest news, latest rumors surrounding the Miami Dolphins. We're now 6 away. Shout out to Marvin. Next Tuesday is my birthday. Well, next Tuesday we'll be back here live. When will that be? May 28th, right? Yes? 27th. We just got to add 7 days, Nick. Not that hard. We'll be back live on the 27th. Oh, we got there. Appreciate y'all for hitting that like button. We're at 39, baby. Y'all bringing it today. And with that being said, that means we can get into our first segment on today's show. We're picking things up here a little quick today. You know, I've realized that 2 times, I just noticed on that listicle, by the way, I'll send you the photo, the Jordan Phillips one. Oh, I got you. Yeah, if you want to grab the rookie headshot. Yeah, I don't even know if that's in the segment, but I just figured since I just briefly saw it. We got a lot to talk about today. We're going to be talking about the Dolphins news. We're going to talk about the Dolphins rumors, about Asante Samuel Jr., Rasul Douglas. I think Miami got disrespected by Bleacher Report and Pro Football Focus. And I got to be honest, I'm just not going to stand for it. I'm going to be here, and I'm going to call them out and give my thoughts. De'Von Achane, he is that young star that we're going to talk about on our third segment. I'm very, very excited about talking about Achane, the third-year running back from Texas A&M, and we'll round out out the show with a Dolphins Q&A. So get those questions in. Hashtag Dolphins or Super Chat. Super Chat guarantees you a question. Hashtag Dolphins puts you at the mercy of producer Reed today. First question in the books is from Gav in knee, asking about the Dolphins and Bills. Take his lead, follow his lead. Leader in the clubhouse, Gav Owens, showing people how it's done to ask a question. If you want to get on the show, potentially, that is how you do it. That or Super Chat. And whenever Reed, you're ready, let's get into the first segment on today's show, which is talking about the latest with Asante Samuel Jr., Rasul Douglas, and free agency. Let's get hydrated there, man. You can't, when the weather heats up, you got to stay hydrated, folks. We got beautiful weather in Dallas, Texas. That's where we're from today. 82 and sunny after a pretty shitty weekend weather-wise. It's going to be sunny. It's going to get to the 90s at the end of the week. Rainy on Sunday, Monday, Tuesday. Being rainy on Memorial Day next Monday, that's a real bummer. Because I'm going to visit family in Cincinnati this weekend, but I am flying back early Monday. Doesn't look like I'll be able to do anything outside. That's a shame. It's a shame. Hopefully everybody enjoys their Memorial Day weekend. Marvin, if you're here and I remember that's your birthday or you remind me, I'll absolutely get you a shout out, my man. I'll absolutely get you a shout out. It actually reminds me, let's look at Cincinnati's weather this weekend. We think it's going to be nice? I hope so. Cincinnati. All right, sweet. Cincinnati. Oh, shit, it's going to be cold. Is Cincinnati usually this cold in the this time of year in May? I thought it would have been warming up. It's a high of 67 over the weekend. And it's going to rain on Monday and Sunday. So it's going to suck being in Cincinnati. Awesome. All right, with that being said, let's get into the first segment on today's show where we're talking about Asante Samuel Jr., Rasul Douglas, and the rest of Miami Dolphins for ANC News and Rumors. Appreciate the handful of people that have already got questions in. We'll get into that with our final segment, which is a Dolphins mailbag. Going to be a lot of fun on today's show. I see some people giving record predictions. Big Dog thinking 12-5. I don't know about that one, Jim. 11-6 from Robert. We'll see. All right, but let's get into the first segment on today's show. We got a developing story here around the Miami Dolphins, and it's the fact that Miami and Chris Grier has reached out to one of the top free agent corners available, that being Asante Samuel Jr. This is Dolphins Today. I am Nick Roloff. I have been someone pounding the table for the Fins to go out and sign Samuel Jr., the former second-round pick out of Florida State. Now, he does have a lot of injury concerns, but the reward on potentially bringing in Samuel Jr. is just so good. But the initial report came in from the Miami Herald's Barry Jackson, who said that in their continued search for veteran cornerback help, the Dolphins have called to inquire about former Fort Lauderdale St. Thomas Aquinas standout and Los Angeles Chargers free agent Asante Samuel Jr., according to a league source. Let's frickin' go. I mean, ever since the draft unfolded and we saw Miami kind of push the cornerback need down the kind of road a little bit, right? They didn't take one until the 5th round with Jason Marshall Jr. They prioritized the trenches, which I'm not that upset about. I would have taken a Will Johnson maybe in the 2nd round or a Trey Amos or something like that, but I'm not going to be mad with Jonah Savvy-Naya. So they pushed it down the road a little bit here. They gambled on being able to sign a couple free agents or some of their young guys like Storm Duck, Cam Smith to blossom. But I believe that a veteran presence and an established starter is still necessary, especially with the Jalen Ramsey rumors about him being dealt over the next 3 weeks still on the horizon. And I want it to be Asante Samuel Jr., and I'm happy that Chris Grier is taking a proactive step here to getting ahead of this and reaching out to Asante Samuel Jr. early in his post-draft free agency process. And this is why you subscribe to the channel, because we will have you covered around the Miami Dolphins every single day. Under 100 subscribers away from our milestone of 70K. Hit that sub button, join the Dolphins Today family, and let's get to 100 or 70K by getting 95 subs. All right, let's move over to what and why the Dolphins need a corner here. I mean, it's obvious, right? Like, this group stinks. And that stinks with Jalen Ramsey on the roster. With him. He's not going to be on the team come September. Unfortunately, he is going to be traded. And if your plan is to roll out Cam Smith, Storm Duck, Jason Marshall Jr., Artie Burns, and Kader Kohu, that's an issue. And you're going to be very bad on that back end, and you're going to have a tough time defending the passing game all year long unless you have the best front seven in football, which I do believe it's top half, by the way, but it's certainly not good enough to masquerade the back end of your defense. You add Asante Samuel Jr. Let's just say you take out Jalen Ramsey. You add Asante Samuel Jr. It's still not good, but it's not the worst thing in the world. It'd be a home run addition to this Dolphins secondary. And I would anticipate Miami adding 2 corners in free agency starting from now until the season in early September. We'll talk about another option here in a second. But it just makes the most sense because he is probably, when you blend youth and productivity in their careers, he's the best fit for the Fins. Now, a signing wouldn't happen for a while now, and I do want to make it clear, Barry Jackson said this as well, that they have not made an offer to Asante Samuel Jr. Heck, they have not even brought him in for a visit yet. So, like I mentioned, it's very early in the process for Samuel Jr. There is not going to be a signing anytime soon. He has to get a lot of things checked off in terms of his medicals, and the team, Miami, needs to feel comfortable about him being able to stay somewhat healthy and that neck not being an absolute catastrophe if they brought him into the building. But I do like that the Dolphins are already registering contact, letting him know that, hey, we know you're still recovering. We know you're probably not going to sign for a while, but we're interested. And when you are ready to sign with a team, we want you. And make sure you remember that we wanted you a little bit earlier than maybe some other teams out there. I like this little move by Chris Grier getting ahead of the curve, knowing that he could be one of the top options for the Fins. And make the prediction for me. This isn't what you want. I want to know if you could see the future. Will the Dolphins sign Asante Samuel Jr.? Will he be playing for the Miami Dolphins in September? Type Y for yes or type N for no. I don't know if I feel confident enough to say a complete yes, yeah, it's going to happen, but I sure hope so, man. As I've continuously mentioned this offseason on today's show, he's just simply the most talented guy out there still. He only played in 6 games last season, so the last time you want to go back to a full season, you got to look back to 2023 to where when he was in coverage, he played really, really well, and he's so versatile, which is just awesome because the Fins are a team that runs a lot of different schemes. He was better in man coverage in 2023. I mean, look at those numbers, man. Almost about a 50% completion percentage, a 61.3 QB rating. And although his numbers ballooned a little bit in zone coverage with his QB rating, he is still someone who possesses good makeup speed, and he can break on the ball so quickly to where he gets in zone, he can ball hawk, man. And he just has so much experience as well, which is something that I really like. He's 25 years old, but he's been a boundary corner for his entire career and starter. 50 games played. He just knows what it takes to be a starting corner. And yeah, he's a little bit undersized, but man, he could play man coverage. He could play press, dude. He's got good physical features to him. He jams you. He disrupts your route. I love watching him work, but the issue is that sometimes he can't stay on the football field, which is why he's not going to sign till July. We mentioned a little bit that neck surgery. He had it in April. Jeremy Fowler from ESPN said that a signing would not come until July when he gets checked back up on and hopefully gets the somewhat green light to go forward with football activities by doctors, checking out his neck and shoulder, which bothered him last season. And this is where Miami is going to have to play a patient game. Now, luckily, they still got to figure out what happens with Jalen Ramsey, trading him to where, or what do they get in return? Could they potentially flip what they get back for Jalen Ramsey in a trade for a different veteran corner like a Jalen Watson, a Greg Newsome who's on the trade block? Who knows? But If they're just signing some free agents to replace Ramsey in the aggregate, like they grab two of them, I'll take all the risk with Asante Samuel Jr. Is a high risk, but the reward is so up there, man. You get him, you maybe grab a Rasul Douglas, who we're going to talk about here in just a second, and you pair those two up with Cam Smith, Storm Duck, and some of these other young guys, and maybe you can create a solid boundary cornerback room, still have one of the better nickel corners in the game and Kader Kohu on your roster. And then you just got to hope that defensive front can get home more times than not so your back end isn't covering for a extended time, because if it is, it's probably going to be a disaster. But I'll take Asante Samuel Jr. every day of the week, and I hope the Dolphins ultimately sign him in July. All right, coming up here in just 1 second, are the Dolphins still interested in Rasul Douglas as the former Bill and Packer potentially going to be signed? We'll talk about that. But make sure you get your Dolphins gear right now, especially when it's on sale for 50% off. This white hoodie here, awesome logo. Love the palm trees, the Go Fins. Hoodie on sale. It's $40 off. Clearance at chatsports.com/Dolphins hoodie. That link is in the description and comments of today's show. Also, size is running out due to it being on sale. It's a hot commodity. Don't wait any longer. Grab yours today. One more time, chatsports.com/Dolphins hoodie. Links in the description and comments of today's video. Let's segue over to Rasul Douglas, because according to Barry Jackson, Miami remains in contact with the former Bills corner. Played for a lot of teams throughout his career, but lastly for Buffalo ever since being traded during the 2023 season from Green Bay to Buffalo. Remember, he played really good for the Bills in that 2023 season after being acquired at the deadline. Struggled a lot last season, but is hoping to rebound here in 2025. Now, if you do remember, and we talked about this, the Dolphins hosted Rasul Douglas on a visit to headquarters. He did not sign a deal with Miami. Rejected the offer that Chris Grier and the Dolphins actually offered him after they met in Miami. He then visited the Seattle Seahawks, left the organization in Seattle without a contract. So might be looking for a little bit more money than teams around the NFL are offering right now, but I like that Miami is still in contact with Rasul, a top 4 corner free agent on the market with Asante Samuel Jr. right now. And as I have alluded to throughout this entire show, I want both of them. I got no issues. Give me both. Because with you losing Ramsey, I don't want to beat a dead horse here, folks, but like that cornerback room, take out Ramsey, worse than football. Without hesitation. 32 out of 32. You add Douglas and Asante Samuel Jr., is it average? No. Probably around like 22 to 20 in the NFL, and that is at least manageable in terms of having a top half defense, which I believe Miami should and could have with how good their front seven is after adding Kenneth Grant to Zach Sealer, bringing back Bradley Chubb and Jalen Phillips, second-year Chop Robinson, Jordan Brooks, and Tyrell Dodson. Like, Douglas isn't good. He didn't have that good of a year last season, but is someone who's got good length, 6'2", can play zone at a very high level. Man coverage is skeptical. Had a poor season last year. But that Bills defense also changed philosophies a little bit, and they ran more man defense than they did in 2023, which is why they struggled a little bit, man. Or at least he struggled a little bit last season. I'm a big fan of adding Douglas and Samuel Jr. Pairing them up together would be a good decision in my book. And I want you to make the call for me. Should the Dolphins sign Rasul Douglas on top of Asante Samuel Jr.? Type S if they should sign him. Type P if they should pass. Well, I know a lot of people are going to be maybe slightly concerned due to his age, 30 years old, and his tough statistics last season, but I also want to put this out there. He is a zone coverage corner. Like, I would not expect him to be good in a man-heavy scheme, but Miami does not run a man-heavy scheme. They run primarily zone. And last year in zone, yeah, the QB rating wasn't that good when being targeted, but he was graded out much better and compared to his man, ranked top half in yards allowed in zone coverage. Like, it wasn't the worst, and that's why he's still a free agent. Like, he's not elite, but he's serviceable. I think he's more serviceable than a Storm Duck or anything like that. Like, I can't just have a lot of faith in a second-year UDFA who played, 4 games last year, and how bad Cam Smith was last season. I would trust Rasul Douglas over him, too, going into his 3rd season. But here's a reason why I think Douglas could be a good fit, man. The Dolphins play a lot of zone coverage. They played cover 2 last season at a 27.3% rate. That was the 4th most in the NFL. Rasul Douglas, who specializes in zone coverage, could fit perfectly into this Anthony Weaver scheme that has a lot of different looks. It plays man, it plays primarily zone, it comes with corner blitzes, and you have to be multiple and versatile to fit in this secondary. And I think you've seen the moves Miami's made fit that. They go out and get a versatile Ashen Davis, Iafatu Melifonwu, Dante Trader Jr. They bring back Kader Kahu. Rasul Douglas would fit this Dolphins secondary really well, and I'd love to pair him up with Asante Samuel Jr. in NFL free agency as well. So let me know your thoughts, and make sure you are subscribed to the channel as well, because if the Dolphins do sign a corner, whether it's Asante Samuel Jr. or Rasul Douglas, we're going to have you covered with a video, so join the channel today. All right, let me know. Going back to the Asante Samuel Jr. question, will the Dolphins sign him? Will they do it? BR says yes. Big Dog says yes. Tyson says yes. What's up, Callum? Joey D says yes. Patrick says yes. Luigi says yes. Callum, I'd love the Jalen Watson trade. I've talked about it a lot. Like, I've been an advocate for trading Tyreek Hill this offseason after June 1st because it saves you a lot of money this year, next year, and I just want him off the team because he's a headache. Like, if you could swing Tyreek Hill to the Chiefs for Jalen Watson in a 5th, sign me up now. Get a really good boundary corner. You could extend him if you like. You get a pick. You get rid of Tyreek. Like, it's got a lot of good mojo over there. A lot of good mojo over there. All right, we're about to get into our second show on this live edition of Dolphins Today. We're going to talk about the disrespect that the Miami Dolphins got from Pro Football Focus and Bleacher Report, which I wanted to discuss. But hit that thumbs up icon. Over 100 people watching, 58 likes. Continue to hit that like button. Help us out. Show our bosses that we're doing a good job by hitting that like button. With that being said, let's get into the next segment on today's show. I am absolutely sick and tired of the disrespect given to the Miami Dolphins by NFL media. Today's edition is brought to you by Bleacher Report and Pro Football Focus, who did not have much complimentary things to say about the offseason that the Dolphins have had. And I don't think it's the best offseason of all time, but it's better than what grade Bleacher Report and Pro Football Focus gave us. PFF gave us a C+, which is at least somewhat comparable, but Bleacher Report, the fraudulent people that they are, gave the Dolphins offseason a D+ grade. I just am having a hard time seeing how you could grade the Dolphins offseason as a D+. We're going to talk all about it on today's show. I'm Nick Roloff. This is Dolphins Today by Chat Sports. But quick initial thoughts. I don't want to come up here and act like the Dolphins won the offseason and had the greatest offseason of all time, because they didn't. But to me, I think D+ is incredibly disrespectful. I could understand a C+, but I think it is at least a B- in my opinion, due to what they have done around the margins and did in the NFL draft. I just can't understand why they would be giving the Dolphins this low of a grade think it's hate, and I think it's just a lot of people liking the pile on the Miami Dolphins because people see the Dolphins get laughed at a lot and stuff like that, and the fans get upset at the ownership and the front office, and then these publications are like, yeah, we'll throw on the pile. I just don't think it's worth it. I don't think it's accurate. So let's go through the entire offseason, but before we do that, make sure you are following me over on Twitter/X. Currently having 1770 followers, on the road to 2K. If you want more Dolphins content in between our videos, follow me over on Twitter. Wall-to-wall coverage on the Fins, 365. Go give me a follow at Nick_Roloff. We'll start with what Bleacher Report graded out and what they had to say. They gave the Dolphins a D+ grade specifically when you talk about what they did in free agency and what they did / will do in the trade market. Then they gave the Dolphins draft grade a C, which brings it to a D+, which I have a quick reservation before we move forward. If you just follow simple math in logic, they gave the Dolphins offseason a D+, right? Yeah? Okay. That's what that says. D+ and C. That means it should be a C-, but that's neither here nor there if you just follow logic of going D+ C. But anyway, let's start with the free agency period that the Dolphins had. We'll look at some key additions and key departures. Start with the additions / re-signed players. James Daniels, they got him on a 3-year, $24 million deal from the Steelers to play one of their guard spots. Kader Kohou re-signed to be your starting nickel corner, and then you grabbed a starting safety in Ifeatu Melifonwu and a solid wide receiver 3 in Nick Westbrook-Ikhine. Now, the players that you lost this offseason, I put Jalen Ramsey on the list because that is an inevitability. He will not be on the team come fall. That's a dagger. Jevon Holland signed with the Giants on a multi-year deal. Calais Campbell went to the Cardinals on a 1-year deal, and Robert Jones went to the Cowboys, starting left guard for the Fins. So when I look at the departures, I understand. Calais Campbell, that hurts. Jalen Ramsey, that's a dagger right into the heart. Those are tough. But if Jevon Holland is the reason why this is such a negative free agency period for the Fins, then you have another thing coming. Let's stop acting like Jevon Holland was an elite safety last season. Can we do that, please? Because this is not just hindsight, by the way, and me defending the Dolphins. I said it all offseason long prior to free agency. I would not bring back Jevon Holland. You can roll the tape and look back at the channel. He just wasn't good last season. And I wasn't paying him $15+ million over 3+ years. Just simply wasn't doing it based off where Miami was with their cap space. Like, look at his advanced numbers from last season in pass coverage and run defense. And out of the safeties that played at least 50% of run defense snaps and pass coverage snaps, he ranked bottom half in QB rating when targeted. He ranked bottom half in forced, or about halfway, I should say, in forced incompletion percentage, and he ranked near the bottom in his missed tackle percentage after giving up a catch at 14.3%. But it was even more abysmal in the run game, where he had a missed tackle percentage against the run 20%, which was 50 of 55 starting safeties. He had a average missed tackles and average stop percentage against the run. There is nothing about Jevon Holland's 2024 campaign that suggests he was a massive loss to the Dolphins defense. People have to get the first 2 years of his career out of his mind. He was elite in 2021 and 2022, but he was lackluster in 2023 and then had a bad 2024 season. So the last 2 years we've seen Jevon Holland, it has not been that good. Let's stop acting like the Fins should have paid him $15+ million per season over multi-years, and they lost a key piece. Not hearing it. I'm not going to take it. I'm going to give you my official grade at the end of today's show, so stick around. But let me know, how do you grade the Miami Dolphins offseason? It's the pinned comment on today's show, so if you hit with YouTube ad break, scroll down, let it play, and answers today's question. As we looked at the key additions and the key departures through the trade market and free agency for the Fins, as I will continue to repeat here on this episode, I will not sit here and act like free agency was the best for the Dolphins because they didn't really make any big-time moves. Outside of James Daniels' 3-year contract, it was a ton of 1-year deals, a ton of re-signings on low-level players, and 1 2-year deal when you look at Nick Westbrook-Achane. But they also did a lot of good things in the draft that I really like. When you think about this offseason, I think one thing could come to mind. You could think of Trent in terms of what they'll be able to do year one for the Fins, but also physical, tough mindset of football players. Kenneth Grant in the first round. Day one starter next to Zach Sealer on the defensive line. He can play 3 tech, he can play 1 tech. Jonah Savignaya, a starting offensive guard right away, but he's also versatile, can play 4 offensive line spots for you at the next level if you need him to. Jordan Phillips, who I think will be a good rotational defensive lineman year one with 1 tech upside, replacing Benito Jones next year. And then Ollie Gordon, the 6th round running back out of Oklahoma State, who excelled at short yard situations, running in between the tackles. Perfect complementary back as that 3rd, 4th guy to De'Von Achane, Jalen Wright, and the free agent you signed, Alexander Madison. Listen, they addressed the trenches. That was the biggest thing for the Fins to do this offseason. Upgrade their offensive line so they can run the ball at an average level because last season it was absolutely embarrassing, but they also need to protect Tua Tagovailoa, and then they get younger and more athletic in the trenches. I love Calais Campbell. I wanted him back to the highest degree. But he is also 37 years old. And I'm not upset that the Dolphins missed out on Calais Campbell and were forced now to go to the defensive line and draft 3 guys. They got Grant, they got Jordan Phillips, they got Zeke Biggers in the 7th round, they got more physical, they got more athletic, and they invested in the trenches. Why are we acting like this is a bad thing when everybody, including me and other publications out there, said it was the number one thing Miami needed to do this offseason? Just don't get the hate from Bleacher Report on the draft and the free agency class. We're going to shift over to what Pro Football Focus said here in a second. But we are sponsored by Prize Picks, the daily fantasy sports platform I play every single day. Take advantage as the basketball playoffs are winding down right now. Don't miss your last chance to get in on the action. You could add your favorite players to points, rebounds, assists. Take your pick of more or less for your shot to win up to 2,000 times your cash today. And you could turn your playoff hot takes into tickets to basketball's championship series as well. Every lineup you make on Prize Picks will enter you into the Takes the Ticket sweepstakes, which could get you and a +1 a VIP trip to the ship. They've got features that are Taco Tuesday, Flex Friday that make playing it so much fun. You can play daily, you can play season long. How about series long? I have an entry for the Knicks Pacers Conference Finals series. I'm going more than Miles Turner points per game, more than Tyrese Halliburton assists per game, and less than Karl-Anthony Towns rebounds per game. You can combine basketball. You can combine baseball, hockey, golf, everything in between. And when the football season rolls around, you can get started with them as well. Join them now. Download the app today and use code CLNS to get $50 instantly after you play your first $5 lineup. That's code CLNS to get $50 instantly after you play your first $5 lineup. Prize Picks. Run your game. Links in the description and comments of today's video. Let's segue over to Pro Football Focus and what they had to say now about the Miami Dolphins offseason. They were at least a little bit more nice than Bleacher Report. Remember, Pro Football Focus gave it a C+, Bleacher Report gave us a D+. PFF said, and they highlighted Jevon Holland again. So this is obviously a sticking point for these two. It's hard to think that the Dolphins are in a better spot than when they started the offseason. They lost Jevon Holland, who admittedly struggled on his way to a 57.1 PFF coverage grade this past season. Miami brought in James Daniels at guard after earning a 92.9 PFF grade in 2024 before getting hurt in Week 4. They got better in the trenches by drafting Kenneth Grant and Jonah Savignaya. I still have big concerns about the Dolphins secondary and the team's long-term outlook. Well, I'll say this, folks. I understand the secondary concern, and it is a major concern. I have been saying all the time about how bad the quarterback room and the safety room could be and will likely be after you trade Jalen Ramsey. But everybody flamed the Miami Dolphins over the past couple of off seasons about not re-signing key guys on the offensive line and defensive line like Robert Hunt, like Christian Wilkins. and they needed to fix the trenches. Well, now they address the trenches. They add Kenneth Grant, Jonas Savinaya, Jordan Phillips, James Daniels. 4 key starters. They got younger, more athletic, more physical. Like I've been saying, they address the trenches. But now they get a bad grade for doing that? Like, make it make sense for me. Everybody says, fix the O-line, fix the D-line. Miami does that. Oh, you didn't do a good job enough. What? Like, I don't understand it. As I mentioned in the off, like I believe they're just hating to hate. And I get it. The secondary is a major concern. But to me, with what they had to work with in this offseason, they did a very, very good job. They didn't have the resources to go out there and re-sign and sign a bunch of exterior guys. They did what they could with what they had. Now, you could blame them for setting themselves up into that position. That's a different conversation for a different day. But based off what they had to work with this offseason, I think that's a pretty solid offseason that they've had so far, which is what I think people are failing to realize is that they didn't have a lot to work with. But make sure you do subscribe to the channel. We're going to round out the conversation on this show here in just one second. But we have daily Dolphins content 100% free. Some of these other spots like Pro Football Focus, ESPN Plus, they make you pay. We don't. Subscribe right now for free Dolphins content every single day. Join the channel and help us get to 70K subscribers. All right, I told you at the beginning of today's show that I would be giving my offseason grade for free agency, for draft, for in the overall. This is where it is. So in contrast to the Bleacher Report, they gave us a D+ for free agency and trade. I'll give it a C. I think they made really good cheap signings like Nick Westbrook-Ikini. I'm getting more and more bullish on Iafatu Melifonwu as a Swiss Army knife safety, 1-year deal. They brought back Kader Kohu, which I really liked. I really thought the Tyrell Dodson re-signing was a big one that is kind of going talked about as well. They were able to restructure Bradley Chubb, so they kept him instead of having to cut him. I give it a C. Nothing crazy, but that's where I'll give it. I like the draft. I gave the draft a B+, man. I told you, I really like Savinaya, I like Kenneth Grant, and I really like Jordan Phillips additions. Ollie Gordon and Quinn Ewers and late day 3 were awesome as well, and I give it a B-. And the best news is, folks, it's not done yet. Like, the offseason could still continue. And I think we might have to bump those grades up if the Dolphins ultimately end up signing 2 corners like Rasul Douglas and Asante Samuel Jr. Like, all those grades that I gave it and the grades that were given by Bleacher Report and Pro Football Focus already factored in the loss of Jalen Ramsey as that inevitability. But they did not factor in the potential additions of Asante Samuel Jr. and Rasul Douglas. If Miami were to add those 2, I think you could bump those grades in free agency and overall even up. And it would be a pretty solid offseason with the limited assets Miami had to work with. So call me crazy, call me an optimist. I have a lot of critical things to say about Chris Grier, but I think he set himself up for failure this offseason, but was able to do a relatively solid job with what he left himself with. Now, it's a question if he should still be here, but that's not a story for today's show. But make sure you do follow me over on Twitter as we're going to continue the conversation around the Miami Dolphins over there. At Nick_Roloff is the handle. Go give me a follow right now. All right, second segment of the book. I couldn't know if you tell, but I got a little fired up there, folks. I was just a little sick and tired of Pro Football Focus and Bleacher Report, man. Building Fins Up says, gotta learn the Savinaya pronunciation. That is how our thing said it. It was Sava E Nai Are you saying you do or I do? When I looked at the sheet of the draft, it said the way to spell it out is S-A-V-U-H, Sava, E, just E, I, or Nye, excuse me, like Bill Nye, the science guy. Sava, E, Nye, But when I say it fast in a video, Savinaya comes out quick. I struggled with it at first, but I got it down to it. I think I got it down now, man. Listen, I don't know how else I'm supposed to say it. And I listened to him say how he should pronounce his name, and I thought it's pretty close. B- for Joey, B+ for Big Dog. London says B. Every Noodle B. C+ from Joey, or B- or C+. I listened to it. I don't think it's pronounced Hawaii Naya. He said replace the H with a S. So Sawayanaya. I don't think that's accurate either, to be honest. I have no confidence or no issue saying Savinaya. Because I think that's as right as it's going to be. I think it is. Oh, we got a couple segments left, folk. We're going to get a De'Von Achane breakdown, how he is a star. And now this is funny, right? Because this is the flip-flopping of a content creator. We just kind of disagreed with Pro Football Focus and kind of shredded him a little bit there. We more or less were shredding Bleacher Report than Pro Football Focus. I thought Pro Football Focus was fair with that grade. C+, I'm not going to split hairs. If I just saw that, I wasn't going to be that upset about it, but I got a little up in my feelings about a D+ grade. But they ranked De'Von Achane in their top 25 players under 25. So I wanted to use that to give him some love. And then we're going to get into a Dolphins Q&A. We have 3 questions already. Use hashtag Dolphins or Super Chat to guarantee your spot on the mailbag. We'll do another call for questions after this show. We already got 3 in there, but if you want to get some in there already, hashtag Dolphins in your comment, question, and then make sure you, if you want to, Super Chat helps us grow the channel, but also guarantees you a spot in the show for a episode that is going out over the weekend. With that being said, let's get into De'Von Achane and how he is a young star for the Miami Dolphins. The Miami Dolphins have a young star on their roster, and that is running back De'Von Achane, who just wrapped up his second season in the league after being a middle-round pick out of Texas A&M in 2023. He has been a revelation for Miami, and the reason why we are actually going to talk about this on today's show, I am Nick Roloff, is Pro Football Focus. They put out their annual and yearly 25 and under list. Top 25 players under 25 in the NFL. And De'Von Achane was on the list as their 21st ranked player, which I thought was a pretty solid praise for Achane, who has been one of the most dynamic running backs in the league over the past 2 seasons, has dealt with injuries, but has put up some pretty gaudy numbers in both the run and passing game. So I wanted to talk about what I expect from him in year 3 and in the future, and as well as look back at his first 2 seasons in the league and why Miami does have a young star on their roster. But I want to show De'Von some love as well. Want to support De'Von Achane and show him that Dolphins Nation loves him and appreciates him? Hit that thumbs up icon. If Achane happens to look up his name on YouTube and comes across this video of us hyping up, I want him to see that we are big-time fans. Hit that like button right now to support De'Von Achane. Now, there was actually 3 running backs on that PFF top 25, under 25 list. Achane coming in at number 3, behind Bijan Robinson and Jahmyr Gibbs. I'll be honest here, and maybe this is biased, and maybe I didn't watch enough Bijan Robinson. I think Devon's on the same level as Bijan. I'll give Jahmyr Gibbs. Gibbs is ridiculous. And I got to be honest, I would put Jahmyr Gibbs over Bijan Robinson on my running back list. I think Jahmyr Gibbs is arguably the second best running back in all of football, behind Derrick Henry or Christian McCaffrey when very healthy. Yeah, you could debate those 3. But either way, I think it's pretty good recognition. And anytime you're on a list with Bijan and Jahmyr Gibbs, 2 players that were picked in the top 15, by the way, of their respective draft, that's a really good thing for De'Von Achane. So let's see what Pro Football Focus said on De'Von. Saying that Achane's otherworldly efficiency as a rookie, 7.5 yards per carry, was never going to be sustainable, and his league-leading 93.1 PFF rushing grade and 92.1 overall grade set expectations very high heading into year 2. Understandably, his 2024 season wasn't quite to that rookie year level, but that shouldn't take away from how good he still was. Achane still ranked 13th in both PFF overall grade, 81.6, and PFF rushing grade, 82.8, as a top 10 player at his position in PFF WAR. And I think another cool thing they added to their article where they said that is they gave him a 3-year grade. Now, obviously, he has not been in the league for 3 seasons. 91.3 was his year 3 grade. Average WAR since 2022 is .13. If you don't know what WAR is, it's wins above replacement. So they're, according to Pro Football Focus, the way they measure it, they're saying that Achane on a gamely basis adds .13 wins per game, which anything in the positive is good in my books. But Achane's been absolutely phenomenal through his first 2 seasons. He has had 800 rushing yards or more, double-digit touchdowns, and this is accounting for both rushing and receiving, by the way. As a rookie, he had 8 rushing touchdowns, 3 receiving touchdowns. As a second-year guy this past season, he had 6 rushing touchdowns, 6 receiving touchdowns. You see the stark contrast in terms of his yards per carry. I think a lot of that can do with, honestly, the overall fact the offensive line for Miami was severely terrible or bad compared to 2023, losing Robert Hunt and replacing him with Robert Jones, Liam Eichenberg. But look at the difference in receiving. He's just one of the most dynamic backs in the passing game that the NFL has, almost tripling. I think he had, my quick math. No, it's not a triple. No, just under a triple in receptions. But he did, in fact, almost triple again his receiving yards. So he took an exponential growth in terms of his receiving game, which makes him one of the most dangerous backs when you pair up with the fact that he can still tote the rock as well. And I wanted to do this exercise because I believe this is going to be a lot of fun, and I can't wait to see the answers down in the comment section. De'Von Achane is the best Miami running back since blank. There is a lot of different ways this can go, but let me know. I am fascinated to see the answers. I expect to see people say J.J. I expect to see people maybe even take it all the way back to Ronnie Brown and Ricky Williams days. I can't wait to see what people say here about De'Von Achane. But although he had a little bit of a down year in terms of his efficiency running the ball in 2024, I still think the advanced metrics show that he was still really, really good. So, out of running backs that ran the ball 370 or 350 plus times, divide that in half. So, you take whoever ran the ball the most, divide that by 2, and that's the running backs that qualify here. So, 27 backs. You see some of these advanced metrics, man. And there's a couple things that stand out to me. One of them is that he is, without a doubt, right now in the NFL, the best pass-catching running back in terms of his receptions, his receiving yards, yards per route run, being 6th out of 27. But there also is a couple things that stand out to me. One, he is a home run hitting machine. You see that breakaway percentage on the bottom left, 7th out of 27 at a 31.5% rate. But one thing that's interesting is that he is not a contact or after contact running back, and that shouldn't surprise anyone. He's a little bit of a smaller back that prioritizes speed and elusiveness. But the one thing about the elusiveness is that he actually wasn't that elusive last season, only forcing 32 missed tackles, which was ranked 25th out of 27th qualified running back. In PFF, this is one of their signature stats, their elusive rating, which is very subjective, yes, but it was a 49.6, ranking 21 out of 27. So, yeah, he's dynamic, he's unbelievably quick, but he did not have a really good season in terms of forcing people to miss him when in the open field, which is a little bit surprising when you think of De'Von Achane's type of game, right? Now, the other thing that I think you could draw from this without question is that he is the best receiving back in football. He is the new Alvin Kamara, if you will. And I think that is just a home run for Miami. I think he's the top receiving back in football. Kamara, when he was at his prime, at his best for the New Orleans Saints, was running for close to, or if not more than 1,000 yards, but also catching 55-plus balls a game and also putting up 600 receiving yards. You see Christian McCaffrey, and when he was doing that in Carolina his first couple years in San Francisco. But I think De'Von Achane has really cemented himself as the top receiving back in football. And maybe it's the way the Dolphins use him. A lot of pitch passes, a lot of quick running back screens, angle screens, but he also is pretty solid at running routes as well. I think that is an underrated part of his game and was really good in terms of his drop percentage. Only had 1 drop, I believe, last season. Just did not drop the football, and he had to make some catches in a crowd. Now, the other thing that is interesting with De'Von Achane is his rushing yard per carry in direction. And I've talked a lot about this in terms of if it is on the running back, if it is the offensive line that deserves blame, but it also is a good kind of point to look at the run distribution that the Dolphins offense had and who they should run behind more. Like, one thing that sticks out to me without a question in terms of running the ball is that the two spots he got the most carries at was outside the tackle in the right and left side, LE and right E. What does that mean? Well, that's not just running behind the or left end and right end per se, right? Because when you look at left tackle, that is outside of the left tackle, right tackle outside the right tackle. That's in between the right tackle and tight end. Left end and right end is when you get halfback tosses, like all the way outside, end arounds. And that was a issue I had last season with the Finns all year long with their rushing game. One, they were not able to run up the middle because their interior offensive linemen with Liam Eichenberg and Robert Jones stunk, but they also just tried to do way too many halfback sweeps and halfback tosses. It drove me up a wall. You see, when they actually just use Achane in terms of stretch zone runs, running behind Armstead, running behind Austin Jackson when he was there, 5.9 yards per carry, 7.3 yards per carry. No shock that he struggled up the middle left, middle right, in between the center left guard, center right guard, due to his just small stature. But, like, can we dial back the halfback tosses and end around De'Von Achane a little bit? Let's use him more in zone runs between the left guard, left tackle, stretch zone runs to the outside shoulder of the offensive tackles. Like, let's do that rather than the tosses a little bit. Now, let's not eliminate the tosses, but let's just dial it back a little bit here. Now, there is also another conclusion that I have about De'Von Achane. And I love De'Von, and I don't want this to be a negative about him. But he is just such a smaller statured back that you cannot trust him to run up the middle. It's the reason why we saw so many halfback dives, or fullback dives, I should say, to Alec Ingold. It's the reason why Jeff Wilson got some tote last year. It's why they went out and signed 5'11", 220-pound Alexander Madison. Reason why they drafted Ollie Gordon, 6'2", 225 out of Oklahoma State, to be that physical back in short yard situations, because De'Von Achane simply can't do it up the middle on a consistent basis. But I'm also not sure he could be a lead back, because he, as a smaller guy, will just get beat up a lot more. De'Von Achane's like a weapon. You have to use him in the right way. And although I love him as a running back, I just don't think it's sustainable for him to get 200 carries consistently, especially if 20 to 50 of them are in between the tackles getting hit by big defensive linemen. And his injury history is already mounting up just slightly over his last 3 years. Now, we could take it back to his final year at college, because in November of 2022, he suffered a foot injury against Florida that cost him 2 games in his final year for the Texas A&M Aggies. But then as a rookie, he missed 5 games. He had a shoulder sprain that forced 1 game miss. Then he had a MCL sprain in October that forced him to miss 4 games. Now, he didn't miss any games last year, which was a very good sign considering his usage rate went up a little bit. But he did have an ankle sprain in September, and he did suffer a concussion in Week 5 against the New England Patriots. Luckily, he did not have to miss that game. But either way, there is concern, at least from my end, about using him as a lead back 200-plus carries due to his size and already piling up a couple of injuries here over the past 5 or 3 years, I should say. We're going to finish the show here in just 1 second. But if you love the Miami Dolphins, make sure you hit that sub button. We have daily content here, whether it's segments like this, news, rumors, everything in between. And when the season is around in the fall, we live for every game as well. So lock us in right now. I kind of alluded to this too here just a second ago, but if De'Von Achane wants to have the most success in Miami and have the most long, sustained career where he's not just unbelievably injured nonstop, I think you have to use him more as a weapon. Like, and that's not me saying that he should get his carries reduced like a lot, but he had 200-plus carries last season. Let's dial that back down to 150. Like, seriously. Take 50 carries away from Achane. We'll still use him a lot in the passing game. We'll probably have more than 50 catches this year. And you can distribute those 50 rushing attempts between 3 really complementary backs. Year 2 breakout candidate Jalen Wright, Alexander Madison, Rookie Ali Gordon. Like, you have, I think, one of the most well-rounded and complete running back rooms in the NFL, where you have a mix of pass catching ability in HM, the speed and physicality mix of Jalen Wright, the in-between short yardage physicality backs of Madison and Ali Gordon. Like, I just love this room. I would argue it's the best room the Dolphins have. Like, I really do. Like, it's either that or edge rusher, I think, at this point. But I also expect and want to see more of Jalen Wright. Listen, Miami prioritized drafting him in 2024. They did. They traded a 2025 third-round pick to get him in the 2024 fourth round. So they clearly have an idea and a long-term view on Achane and Jalen Wright as a 1-2 combination. And especially when you look at what the Dolphins did last season, they ran 21 personnel, 2 running backs, 1 tight end, 29.4% of the time. Second highest rate in all of football, only trailing Kyle Shanahan and the San Francisco 49ers. The league average is 6.2%. So yeah, 2 running backs see the field quite a bit. Now, whether that is De'Von Achane and Alec Ingold, whether that is Achane and Jalen Wright, Wright and Ingold, whatever combination you want to throw out there. The point is, 2 running backs saw the field, the second most for the Dolphins in the NFL last year. So I think you could see Achane line up at wide receiver, use him more in that light, and use Jalen Wright. But the point is, you can use Achane's versatility in the pass and run game as a decoy. You could send him on a flat, and some people might be like, oh, is he coming in for a screen? Is he running an angle route? And it's actually misdirection pitched the other way to Jalen Wright. Like, there's just so many different ways you can use Achane, even if he's not getting the ball, which is only going to benefit Jalen Wright, who is expected to get a larger role in year 2, and I'm excited to see it. Rounding out the show here in one more second, but make sure you get your Dolphins hoodies on sale. Clearance, $40 off, half off. Chatsports.com/Dolphins hoodie. I love this design. I say it every time. Got that white, aqua, orange accent, the palm trees, the Dolphins logo. Chatsports.com/Dolphins hoodie is the link. It's in the description and comments of today's video. Grab yours right now before they run out of stock, because they are $40 off. But I mentioned the carry and usage rate of De'Von Achane last season. Since Mike McDaniel became head coach and play caller for the Dolphins, there has been a clear direction of how he wants to use his lead back in comparison to his backup. The last 2 seasons, it was Raheem Mostert in 2023, Achane in 2024. Both got over 200 carries. And then the backup was at 103 and then 85. Raheem Mostert in 2024 was De'Von Achane in 2023. So to me, I think the best way to go about kind of the running back usage rate, and I mentioned it, you have a very complimentary room. Why not move De'Von Achane's carries from 203 in 2024 to, let's just say, 150, 160? Bump Jalen Wright, who I have a lot of high hopes for, up from 68 carries to 110. Like, and maybe that's just a 50 to 50 rate, but you can also do 68 carries to 110 for Wright. You can give Madison 50 carries, Ali Gordon about 25, 30 carries throughout the year, and De'Von Achane 175, 160. Like, I don't think that's a lot. I don't think it's taking back him. I'd make the argument doing that is actually more beneficial for De'Von Achane than it would actually hurt him. Why do you ask that? Well, when you get less carries and less usage, you'll be more fresh. You'll be able to not get injured as often. Like, it just makes more sense to me to use your backfield in that type of way. But as we close out today's show, I want to get the thoughts of the Dolphins fans. Can De'Von Achane be a lead back in the NFL? 3 down, 200-plus carries every single year type of guy. I think he could, but I also don't think he would have a long career. I think it'd be like 6-year career rather than hopeful 8 to 11-year career. Let me know your thoughts down below. Final word on today's show. As I just mentioned, you have such a good collection of running backs, man. I think it's top to bottom, the most complete and well-rounded room on your entire roster. I really do. The 4 starters you have between Gordon, Achane, Wright, Madison, it's just solid. Use them all. Keep them all fresh. Prevents injuries. Keeps them explosive. And I think the Dolphins are going to be a team that tries to run the ball a lot more this season than last year. It's why they went out and drafted Savi Inaya. It's why they added James Daniels. They solidified that offensive line, at least we hope, with their current plan. You do that, maybe you become a physical football team and you could just pound the ball down your opponent's throats at the end of the game, run out the clock, and wear them down. Like, I think that's a real possibility that this offense kind of puts that on their back and wants to have that more of an identity this year. And then when you still have Jalen Waddle, Nick Westbrook-Keeney, and Tyreek Hill, those front sevens start to come in when you run the ball effectively. Now you get those play action one-on-one deep shots of your speedy wide receivers. You're just going to have a more well-rounded offense, man. I can't wait to see it. All right, I'll do it for today's show. Make sure you are subscribed to the channel for daily Miami Dolphins content, videos every single day, sometimes 2 a day. So if you want the most around this Dolphins football team, join that channel. If you're still watching now, well, you obviously like what we're doing to some degree, so make sure you are subscribed. All right. Oh, boy. Make sure you use hashtag Dolphins or Super Chat to get on our Q&A we were about to do. I saw we got a Super Chat right as we started that segment. We want to flash that on screen, and then we'll take a look at how many questions we actually have. Oh, man. I also couldn't really look down. Who are the players that were mentioned when it was the running backs? I think I saw Reggie Bush, Ricky, Raheem Mostert, Ronnie Brown, Lamar Miller. I don't hate that. That's a good one. Lamar was a dog, man. All right, I like the answers. I wanted to create some conversation. I like that, man. Shout out to Frank O'Connor, my guy. Hear me out, guys. Trade Hill to the Chiefs for their young CB, assuming you're taking about Jalen Watson, not Trent McDuffie. They would not trade him. And then trade Ramsey to get Newsome, younger and way better. Get rid of 2 problems. Ramsey not getting a loan, and we all know hell. A long, I think you were meant to say. Yeah, listen, I'm going to talk about this Frank more in depth on our Q&A here. I truly believe that you and I align on a lot of things here. I think we align. Yeah, we'll start with you. We have enough? Okay. Good to know. All right, let me just retweet my own tweet here as a short just went out. Okay. All righty. We're going to get into our final segment here as we just crossed 6 p.m. Eastern time. Q&A time, folks. Let's do it. Miami Dolphins mailbag. Hopefully everybody is having a good Memorial Day weekend, and we're here to answer the questions around the Miami Dolphins. And we're going to start it with the real one himself, that being Frank O'Connor. $10 Super Chat on our Tuesday live show. Shout out to you, Frank. Hear me out, guys. Trade Tyreek Hill to the Chiefs for their young corner. I assume you're referring to Jalen Watson. And then trade Jalen Ramsey to get Greg Newsome from the Cleveland Browns. Get younger and way better. Get rid of 2 problems. Ramsey not getting along. And we all know Hill. Listen, those are 2 ideas that I've thrown out in the past, and I would absolutely be all in on. I've thrown out this trade idea before, and I would do it in a heartbeat if it was on the table after June 1st, because you got to wait till after June 1st to get the cap relief this year as well as in 2026. But you trade Tyreek Hill to Kansas City, you get Jalen Watson, the corner, and you get a 5th-round pick in the 2026 draft. Like, sign me up. This was actually the trade idea. Shout out producer Reed for being able to get this on screen. I think that's a deal that if Kansas City looked at their roster and was like, we still needed another guy in the wide receiver room. Obviously, Xavier Worthy's there, but Rashee Rice, I don't know when he's going to return. Isn't there? I think there's questions about him being suspended based off stuff that happened last offseason. Unsure of that. But if the Chiefs would want to add a wide receiver, they're not going to pay Jalen Watson. He's on the last year of his rookie deal. We can have him in here, get a first look at him, maybe agree to an extension. Like, I would be all in on that deal. Now, on the second half of that trade, you said trade Jalen Ramsey to the Browns for Greg Newsome. I don't think the Browns would trade for Jalen Ramsey. And I also think you are working lightly with Jalen Ramsey here about a trade because You're not going to send him to a place he wouldn't want to play because then he'll just be miserable and then create havoc there, and that other team wouldn't want to do it. But the way you can essentially trade Jalen Ramsey for Greg Newsome is you could trade Jalen to the Rams, a team that wants Ramsey. Say you get a conditional 4th-round pick in return for Ramsey. You can then swap that pick that you got in that Ramsey deal to the Browns for Newsome. Newsome, former 1st-round pick out of Northwestern, entering the final year of his contract, 5th-year option, $13.5 million. So in this hypothetical that Frank threw out, we're getting both Newsome and Watson, who are on the final year of their rookie deals. Newsome much more expensive than Watson, and you'd have to make the decision on extending them. But it would be a good short-term replacement for Jalen Ramsey, a cornerback room of Newsome, Watson, Kader Kohu, and then depth of Cam Smith, Storm Duck. That's a good room. That's actually, I would say, a league average room. So if you were able to do those 2 moves, I would be absolutely all in. It's a little far-fetched that both happen, but hey, just one of them, I'd be absolutely in on it. All right, we'll finally move on to another question. I feel like I just spent like 6 minutes talking about that. 3 minutes talking about one question. Gavi, what's up, dude? Hey, Nick, if the Dolphins go and beat the Bills twice this year, can they win the AFC East? I mean, yeah. Listen, Miami hasn't been able to beat Buffalo since Mike McDaniel played them the first time in Miami early 2022 season. They're on quite a losing streak to the Buffalo Bills here, including one in the playoffs. But if you were to tell me right now, you blindfold me. All right, I'm blind. Dolphins 17-game schedule here. You win in Week 3 against Buffalo, and you win in Week 10. Well, I mean, you win both those games, you probably should win the AFC East, right? Like, if you beat the Bills twice, you swept that season series, and you don't win the division, what else went wrong? Because if you're good enough to beat the Buffalo Bills in Buffalo and then beat them a second time at home, you should probably be good enough to win 12-plus games. And if you win 12 games and sweep the Bills, you probably have the advantage in the season series and the tiebreaker to win the division. So, yes, Gavin, I don't think it's going to happen, and I don't think it's ever going to happen because the Bills are better at almost every aspect of the game. But if they did somehow beat Buffalo twice, I would expect Miami to be atop the AFC East when it comes to January, yes. Make sure you do follow us over on Instagram. Dolphins Today IG is our handle. We're 16 followers away from 900, which then would put us 100 away from 1,000. Remember, we have a special video coming when we get to 1,000 followers over on Instagram, but we got to get to 900 first. We post short form and other content over there in between our YouTube videos. So if you want more Dolphins coverage, that's the handle. Go give us a follow today. BR with a question. Are the Dolphins close to their 2023 form if they fix their secondary? That's a good question, BR. It's tough to project that. I think it really is. If they were to, but like my thing is like, how are they fixing their secondary? Because in 2023, they had Jalen Ramsey and Xavier Howard, and I don't think X was that good, but that was a pretty solid duo. And you still had Kader Crow in the nickel. Like, I just to me don't think they will reach the heights offensively. Now, do I believe the offense that the Dolphins could throw out this year could be more well-balanced than 2023? Potentially. I do actually believe that. But with how the Dolphins took the league by storm on the offensive end with their cheat motion, teams just couldn't defend that. And I don't know if they're reaching that again because they were just so dominant at every level. They were a top 10 rushing team, top 5 passing team, number 1 and number 2 overall offense, any way you want to slice it. I also don't think there's a way that the Dolphins have a good enough safety. Remember that 2023 safety room? It had Javon Holland, it had Deshaun Elliott, it had Brandon Jones. Like, they had dogs. Deshaun Elliott and Brandon Jones were 2 of the best graded safeties last season. Like, I just don't think there's moves Miami could make to get to that level on that back end in the offseason. I love the idea of adding Asante Samuel Jr., adding Rasul Douglas, and replacing Jalen Ramsey, assuming he's traded. But I don't think it's either going to be that close to the 2023 roster now. Every Noodle with a question. Who do you have being the next Van Ginkel, late-round pick, who makes a dominant presence on the roster? Okay, that's a good question. How do I want to answer this? Do I want to answer from this year's draft class, last year's draft class? I have a hard time giving up on Mohamed Kamara. I do. I really do. Who was the 5th-round pick out of Colorado State in the 2024 draft. He's projected to be your 5th edge rusher this year, 4th or 5th, him or Quentin Bell. You have Chop, you have Jalen Phillips, you have Bradley Chubb, and then you have Quentin Bell and Kamara there as your 4th, 5 guys. Kamara, undersized, yes. Didn't get a lot of run his rookie season. Got lapped by Tyus Bowser, who they brought in free agency. Lapped by Quentin Bell. Some others to name, Manuel Agba as well, who they signed to replace Shaq Barrett, who retired. But I just loved that pick, man. Like, he's got a bulldog mentality. He's hungry. He's motivated. And I believe Mohamed Kamara could have a pretty solid year, too. Like, I don't know what that would be, but if you told me at the end of the year that as that 4th, 5th edge rusher, Mohamed Kamara had 4.5, 5 sacks, I wouldn't be shocked. And maybe in year 3, he'd have next season, not this year, but the one after, he's your edge 2 or edge 3 to Chop Robinson / the one you retain between Jalen Phillips and Bradley Chubb. I wouldn't be shocked. I wouldn't be shocked. So I'm going to answer Mo Kamara. I just can't give up on him. I absolutely love Mo. All right. Let me know. Name your top Dolphins free agent target. Who do you want Miami to sign in free agency? Is it a Rasul Douglas? Is it an Asante Samuel Jr., Justin Simmons, Julian Blackman, an offensive lineman? Let me know your thoughts. Name your top Dolphins free agent target down below. Tyson with a question. Which games on the Dolphins schedule are upsets we need to get to make the playoffs? Okay. Let me try to run through the schedule in my head here. Off the domer. Okay. Upsets where but I also want to categorize when you say upsets, like the Dolphins will be underdogs in these games. Oh, Reed's pulling up the schedule. Thank goodness. Okay. I was trying to run through them, but I was only thinking of, all right, so let's run through the first 8 games here. It's a fun exercise. What games will Miami be underdogs in? It's basically going to be a pick 'em week 1. They'll be favorites at home in week 2. They're going to be on the road underdogs against the Bills in week 3. Home favorites against the Jets. They'll be favored against the Panthers. Toss-up against the Chargers at home. They'll be favored against the Browns. Think it's a toss-up, but probably slightly underdogs against the Falcons. So let's say in the first 8 games, I think you need to go 6-2 in these 8 games to make the playoffs. If you could somehow upset the Bills in Buffalo in week 3, that puts you on an unbelievable trajectory towards the NFL playoffs. So if you're answering what game would be a massive upset to propel us to the postseason, week 3 against Buffalo in Buffalo would be the no doubt option. Final 9 games of the season. The one that came to mind originally before we pulled up the schedule, you're going to be underdogs at home against the Ravens. You're going to be underdogs against the Bills at home. I think you're going to be underdogs on a neutral site in Madrid, Spain against the Commanders. Can you get one of those games? I had the Dolphins going 10-7 in my record prediction with them losing all 3 of those games. If you can give me one of those games and go 1-2 in that stretch, that gives you some leeway elsewhere in the schedule. I also think they would be underdogs against the Steelers on the road, assuming they have Aaron Rodgers. Toss-ups, New England, Cincinnati, and Bengal. But I'll say this. If you can split the Bills games, go 1-1, and maybe take down the Commanders in Spain. You split the Bills, you beat the Commanders in Spain on a neutral site, and I think you will be in a very good spot to make the playoffs because it gives you some wiggle room to maybe drop one other game in the season. But I think if you were able to say in the 4 games against Buffalo, Baltimore and Washington, you go 2-2 in those 4 games. I think you're in a really good spot. Really, really good spot. All right, let's move over to Prize Picks, the daily fantasy sports platform that is making this episode possible. I play Prize Picks every single day, whether it's the basketball playoffs, the hockey playoffs. You can even play some golf, which I'm a big fan of. And with the playoffs and basketball winding down, don't miss your last chance to get your favorite players on the court to your lineup, whether it's points, rebounds, assists. Take your pick of more or less for your shot to win up to 2,000 times your cash today. And you could actually turn your hot takes into tickets to the basketball championship series. Every lineup you make on Prize Picks will enter you into the Takes the Ticket sweepstakes, which could get you and a +1 a VIP trip to the ship. You can play so many different ways. Series long, season long, daily. I have a series long entry for the conference finals in the East. More than Miles Turner, 15.5 points per game. More than Tyrese Halliburton, 8.5 assists per game. And less than Karl-Anthony Towns, 11.5 rebounds per game. 3-player entry there to win 5 times my money, but you can customize the way you play to get 2,000 times your cash today. All you got to do, download the app, use code CLNS when signing up. That gets you a $50 instant and bonus funds after you play your first $5 lineup. That's code CLNS to get $50 instantly after you play your first $5 lineup. Prize Picks. Run your game. Let's move over to my guy, Callum. Do you think Waddle should be wide receiver 1 from now on, even if Tyreek Hill stays, considering Hill will be gone next year? I actually kind of do. I like this question. It's one that we don't really talk about often here. I do believe Miami should use Waddle and feature him like they're the wide receiver 1. And unfortunately, that may cause Tyreek Hill to be upset, but I also don't care. Like, as long as it's not detrimental to the locker room, like, the future of this wide receiver room is without a question Jalen Waddle. And as I continue to mention, trade or no trade, Tyreek Hill will not be on the Dolphins roster in 2026. He's got a $52.8 million cap hit. And if you cut him after the season, prior to June 1st, you save $36 million in cap space. There is no world where Tyreek Hill is on the roster for the Fins in 2026. So why not start prepping Jalen Waddle as that lead guy, the one who gets the most targets and is that lead dog in the wide receiver room? Obviously, you're still going to benefit greatly from having both Tyreek and Jalen, and having him opposite is going to cause a lot of attention to be drawn by opposing cornerback ones, and maybe Jalen Waddle isn't going against CB ones of the other team. But if you feature him in the offense like he is the wide receiver 1, you know what to expect. He knows what to expect moving forward, and you know what type of wide receiver you might want around Jalen to complement him. Because when you do inevitably cut Tyreek Hill, next offseason, wide receiver 2 will be a need. As much as I like Malik Washington and I like Westbrook-Ikhine, who's on a 2-year deal, like, those guys aren't like legit wide receiver 2s, at least as of right now. So you'd probably need to add one next offseason. So get an early look at what you think could be the best partner to Jalen Waddle. Make sure you also are subscribed, because we're talking about next season. We're talking about this season. We're going to be live for every Dolphins game as well when the season commences in August and September. Subscribe now for daily Miami Dolphins content. All right, building Fins up, my guy with a question. What would be your next move if Tua misses significant time against this year? Draft a QB. I don't know. Like, there's so many ways you can go about this, right? Building Fins up. This QB class is on paper projected to be really, really good. Drew Aller. Like him. I do. Maybe Arch Manning comes out. Probably I say no, but who knows? Lenore Sellers from South Carolina. Big fan of him. Garrett Nussmeier from LSU. Fan of him. Maybe Cade Klubnik from Clemson takes a rise up. Not really high on him personally, but maybe he improves his game. Either way, and either way you slice it. If Tua misses more than 4 or 5 games this year due to injuries, he is no longer the QB1 in the future. Now, what does that mean for you next season? Well, Tua's still going to be your quarterback. Why do I say that? When you look at Tua's contract, it is out. You can get out of it after 2026. There is not that much dead cap after 2026. So if you do have Tua miss a lot of time this year, here's what you do. You draft the quarterback in the first round, assuming you're picking in the top 12 or 13 because Tua missed a lot of time and you stunk this year, right? That's the assumption. You draft him. You have him sit behind Tua in 2026, develop, learn Mike McDaniel's scheme and system, assuming he's still here, but who knows, he might be gone. So, I mean, that's another added aspect to this, right? Who's the head coach? Who's the GM? Is it the same duo? Is it a different duo? If it's a different duo, well, then Tua might just be gone, and they might trade him. And maybe some team tries to pick him up. But if he misses time, I'm not guaranteeing any time in his contract. I'm drafting a quarterback, planning for him to be the starter in 2027. And if he just is unbelievable in preseason and training camp and in practice and he beats Tua out, well, then you start him and you have a very expensive backup quarterback for 1 year and then cut him the year after. That's what I would do if Tua misses time again this year. Tyson, should Chris Grier trade? No. Done. I assume you're talking about Deshaun Watson. Nope. Moving on there. Michael Mayer, 2, to replace Julian Hill. I wouldn't hate Michael Mayer, the tight end, third-year guy from Notre Dame, to replace Julian Hill. I mean, the question is like, are you really making a minuscule move? And is Michael Mayer better than Julian Hill? Absolutely. No question about it. But is it worth making a trade? And is the Raiders trading Michael Mayer? I thought there was rumors about them trading him, but that has really quieted down, so I'm not so sure that's going to be something that continues to pop up. In the spirit of conversation, what a question here. We had this pre-planned, by the way, in our mailbag, not even based off that video. Will Chris Grier and Mike McDaniel be here next offseason? While we're here making this video next year in May of 2026, will our head coach still be Chris Grier and Mike McDaniel, and will our GM still be Chris Grier? I hope so, because if that's the case, that means the Dolphins made the playoffs. If they are not here, that means we probably had a really bad season, and the Dolphins finally made the right move. But let me know your thoughts and predictions down in the comment section. All right, a couple round-out questions here. Last one to be exact. Gav, again. When Miami Dolphins go to Spain to play the Commanders, what if Tua shows the world on a national stage he throws for over 400 passing yards and 4 touchdowns, 0 picks? I'd be happy. I mean, we'd probably win the game, hopefully. This is the question I have, though. What if the Dolphins still go like 7-10? And that's one of their wins. Like, Tua balled out against the Buffalo Bills on the road last year. They lost. What if he balled out against, what was the team he balled out against? Oh, I'm spacing. Oh, the Raiders. In that game they won late. Balled out against the Jets where they won in overtime. Like, you can have a quarterback play really, really well in a game, but still have a bad season. So, I mean, I'm not, like, one big game on an international stage isn't changing my thoughts on a player. So, we'll see. Yeah, it's all right. I'm over it. I am.
Producer Reed popping in real quick. We are live right now. This was meant to be Jalen Watson, not Deshaun Watson.
Oh, okay. Yeah, absolutely trade for Jalen Watson, like we said at the start of the show with that Frank O'Connor super chat. Owen, Chiefs aren't going to extend him, and if they're not going to extend him, they might just trade him and get something back in return because they develop corners at a really rapid rate. So, yeah, let's go in and trade for Jalen Watson. I'm all in on that. All right, I'll do it for today's mailbag. Make sure you do follow us on Instagram at Dolphins Today IG. That's our handle for more content outside of our YouTube. But also, if you missed out on the mailbag and the live show Tuesday afternoon, which we're live every Tuesday afternoon on Dolphins Today, you can ask a question to us over on Instagram. So make sure you go give us a follow right now. All right, that does it for the live show. Hour and a half. Talked a lot about stuff. Cool stuff. At least hopefully you guys think that. Hopefully you guys. I am starving. I had fried rice, but they kind of skimped out on the servings. And also there wasn't a lot of protein in it. So when you just eat fried rice, it's one of the least filling things you can eat. I love rice, but it's not a filling item. It's not. Yeah, but I did not have a lot of rice, so I'm starving. Billy Finn's up with a 5, my man. Honestly, pending something outrageously bad, even if we miss the playoffs, I expect to keep our staff because we started building a young core. Okay, so I do like some of the young pieces Miami has. I do. De'Von Achane, Jalen Wright, Jalen Waddle, Chop Robinson, the rookies that you drafted obviously this year. But they should not stop you from building or from tearing it down. Because here's my thing, guys. The Dolphins haven't won a playoff game in 25 years. 25. That's bad, man. And they made the playoffs 3 times over the last 10 years. They lost in the first round, 2016, 2022, 2023. Like, it's not good, man. And you just gotta stop being okay with mediocrity. You have to be. Chris Grier has been the GM since 2016. If he misses the playoffs this year, that's now damn near a decade of not winning a playoff game. get his ass out. And if you go 7-10, 6-11, like, are you keeping McDaniel when he's shown? And because if you go 6-11, you go 7-10, that likely tells you that once again he wasn't able to adjust to adversity this year, and defenses around the league once again boxed him as a play caller. Like, I don't know, man. If the Dolphins, the only way the Dolphins' current regime is here next year, in my opinion, is if they make the playoffs. And even if they make the playoffs, like, I borderline think they have to win a game. Because, like, I am not someone who enjoys mediocrity. And it's not like this is a team like the Steelers with Mike Tomlin who has made the playoffs, had consistent success, won one game and got bounced, but never won it, like, hasn't won a championship in a while. Like, this team doesn't win, man. You're stuck between 6-11 and 11-6 every year without winning playoff games over the last 10 years. Like, I don't want to deal with that anymore, man. Doesn't. I'm done. All right. Appreciate the 2 super chats from Frank O'Connor building Fins Up. Appreciate the 1,200 people that tuned in throughout today's live show. It was a blast to talk some Miami Dolphins football with all of y'all. Hopefully everybody enjoys the rest of their week and Memorial Day weekend. We will be here back live on Tuesday talking about the latest around the Miami Dolphins. So make sure you subscribe. Make sure you join us next Tuesday for our live show once again.